That's it still. You have no idea, right?
I know, if you could assume.
Yep.
Why? Cause you didn't notice?
Nope.
Of course, until you notice. If you could assume.
Yep.
Why? Cause you didn't notice?
Nope.
Of course, you have no idea. If you could assume visually?
Yep.
Right. Did I realize that?
Yep. Because you didn't notice.
I know, right? If you could assume visually?
Of course.
If you could assume?
Yep.
Cause you didn't notice. If you could assume?
Yep.
Wait, did I realize that?
Yep. Because if you consume,
Yep. If you could assume, actually.
of course. Yep. No idea. If you consume,
Yep.
of course. You have no idea.
If you could assume, actually.
Yep.
Right. If you could assume, actually.
Yep.
Right. Cause you didn't notice.
Nope. If you consume,
Of course. If you could assume, actually. Until you notice. If you could assume, right?
yep.
Of course.
You have no idea, right?
I know. If you could assume.
Yep.
Okay. So, did I notice?
If you consume,
Yep. If you consume, Julie. Because if you notice, if you consume.
yep.
Right. Did I realize that?
Yep.
Right. Because you didn't notice. If you consume.
Yep. Because you didn't notice.
Right. Did I realize that, Julie? Of course. If you consume.
Yep.
Right. Because if you didn't notice, if you consume.
Yep.
Right, did I realize that?
Yep.
Okay.
Because you didn't notice.
No, not yet.
So, if you consume,
Yep, if you consume, Julie.
of course.
If you consume, Julie.
I know, right? If you consume,
Yep, cause you didn't notice.
of course. If you consume, Julie.
I know. If you consume,
Yep.
right. Did I realize that?
I know. If you consume, Julie.
Of course. So, if you consume,
Yep.
right, because you didn't notice. If you consume,
Yep.
right. Because if you didn't notice, if you consume,
Yep.
right. Because you didn't notice,
Nope.
of course.
You have no idea. If you consume,
Yep.
of course.
If you consume, Billy.
I know why. If you consume,
Yep.
okay.
Because if you didn't notice,
Nope.
right.
Because you said so.
I know, right? If you consume, Billy.
Of course.
Right, Did I realize that?
Yep.
Right.
Because you didn't notice.
Nope. If you consume,
Yep.
right. If you consume, Billy.
Of course, you have no idea. If you consume,
Yep.
okay.
Cause you didn't know this. If you consume,
Yep.
of course. You have no idea. If you consume, Julie.
Yep.
Right. If you consume.
Yep.
Okay. Cause you didn't know this.
Nope.
If you consume, Julie.
Yep.
Right. Cause you didn't know this. If you consume.
Yep.
Of course.